let's go ahead and now create the modular mobile interface, and we're going to use the CSS Flex property to create the screens for this interface. So let's get started. What we'll do first is add our main, or our parent containing element. Okay, and this div is going to hold all of the other screens, whether those screens are going to be horizontally scrolled or vertically scrolled. Okay, we're going to start off with just scrolling our screens horizontally. Okay, so let's go ahead now and we'll add a section inside, and let's go ahead and comment our sections so we know what's what here. All right, so we start off with our div, which is the parent element that's going to be our main container, and then each section inside the main container is going to be a screen. So I'm going to start off with a home screen, and this is what we will see first. Okay, and then let's add a list, and after the list let's add a recipe, and let's go ahead and add a submit area. So if someone wanted to submit a recipe, and we can also add a profile. So maybe in your interface you want the user to, when they sign in or they sign up, they can create a personal profile. And maybe this is, if they post information, this is what other people would see. Maybe they can save recipes or different categories in this section. It's really sort of open. Now let's add the account, or the area, the screen which the user might go to log in or sign up. And then let's go ahead and create also a categories. Now the order that these are in, it's going to be completely up to you, because it's going to be possible to jump to these or we can scroll through them as a gesture movement. Now we probably wouldn't have all of these as a gesture, okay, but for our prototype that's how it's going to work. In a real scenario, we would program the areas that we couldn't gesture to. Okay, we would stop this movement. So basically, in this main container, I just wouldn't have some of these elements if I didn't want to be able to gesture or scroll to these. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of this little bit of space here. So again, just the overview. The initial div is the container which is going to hold all of the screens in your prototype. The amount of screens you have, it's really based on the solution to your project. Okay, so now let's add our basic CSS to get us going here. And what we'll add, let's go ahead and take control of our font size. So we're going to end up using rems. So in our HTML, we'll call out our font size. So this will be our root font size. And then let's go ahead and on the body of the document, on our overflow X and Y, we're going to set both to hidden. And then we'll use our universal selector, sort of like a mini reset. And we're going to set the box sizing to border box. So we're going to work with our CSS3 box model. And let's go ahead and just zero out margin and padding, so every element will be zeroed out, and if we need to add margin and padding, we can, but we don't have to worry about the default getting in our way. Okay, Now, that's next. What we'll do is control or style the main container. And we're just going to set the position to relative. We're going to set the scroll snap type to X mandatory. So basically, as we're scrolling on the X coordinate, we're going to make each of the screens snap to the beginning. Okay, we're going to set the start. The display will be flex. Okay, so this is our CSS Flex setup, and then we're going to go ahead and use a WebKit overflow scrolling to touch. This will be for our gesture for our mobile device, and then our overflow X will be set to scroll. Okay, now let's go ahead and we will add the rule which will style each of the sections. Now, if you wanted to do something specific to each of these sections, then you could add more classes and you could apply more rules or styles through additional classes. I'm using all of the IDs as a means to jump to these areas later when we begin to add our menu, okay, or our navigation. All right, so let's take a look at our section. The position is relative. The minimum width is going to be 100 of the viewport width. The height will be 100 of the viewport height, and the scroll snap align, okay, is going to be at the start. So up here we have scroll snap text X on the X coordinate, and we're setting this to mandatory. All right. And then in our section, we're going to have our scroll snap align start. So we should snap to the start, otherwise the left-hand side of each of our screens. Now I'm just going to check. I don't recall in my settings here. No, I did not. So what we need to do is in our HTML settings, let's go ahead and insert our meta tag for our viewport, and we're going to set the initial scale to 1. So we're just click insert the most common viewport meta tag and save. Okay. Now, if you're using another editor, then you're going to have to place that meta viewport above the title in the head of the document. Okay. And of course, this HTML here is our structure, which would be in the body of the document. And then your CSS rules, you would have to create a CSS document and then link to them. CodePen does all of this for us. Okay, so however you, or whatever device you want to use, excuse me, whichever editor you want to use, that is up to you. Okay, let's go ahead and save, and we will then preview to see what we have here. And what you need to do is make sure that you go to the inspect mode. So I'm using Chrome, but pretty much any web browser, if you right click, you should have the inspect mode. Safari, you might have to install the developer tools to get the inspect mode. Okay, then what we're going to do is make sure we are toggling our device into a mobile environment. I happen to be using the Galaxy S5 environment. You can use what you want depending on what you're targeting your interface to or towards. That'll be up to you. Okay, so now let's just here's our home page. So if we click and gesture like you would in a mobile device, you can see that we are moving through. If I don't move it enough, then it won't make the next screen snap to the left. So you can see we can move through all of our screens. And if you happen to really do a fast gesture, then you'll go multiple screens, but you'll see that they still will snap to the left-hand side. All right, so that is how we set up the basic shell using CSS Flex for our mobile interface to be able to scroll horizontally or gesture horizontally through our prototype.